Hey guys, it's Miss Jones with a tutorial on counting atoms. Let's go ahead and get started with some practice problems. I want you to make sure that you record these example problems in your notebook. I'm only going to do a few, but I want to see them inside your notebook for your next notebook check. So let's start with, example 1. Formula you all know very well, H2O. Well, you guys should have known from a long time that it is water. First thing we want to do is we want to box the formula. And when we get to balancing equations, you'll see multiple formulas separated by a plus sign. So let's go ahead and get the practice in of boxing in the formula. So H2O is the formula that we're working with. Then I want to list all the elements in my formula. So I only have 2 in this one, and how do I know that? I'm looking for the capital letters, and I only have 2, okay? Okay, I'm going to list those 2 letters, so I have a capital H and a capital O. Now that I know that, I'm going to check to see if there's a subscript next to each of my capital letters. So I'm looking for subscripts. I'll check with capital H first. First subscript is right here. Let's make it red. Then I'm going to check for capital O. There is no subscript there. But since capital O is there, I know that it has a subscript and it's understood as 1. Next, I want to check for a coefficient outside of the formula. Remember, the coefficient tells you how many sets you have of that element. Since I don't see a coefficient there, I'm going to know that this is understood as 1. That means I have 1 set of H2O. And basically that means if these 2 orange circles represent my 2 hydrogens, then this blue one represents my 1 oxygen. They are all connected. This is 1 molecule of H2O. Then the only thing left to do, let's count it. It's the distributive property, just like in math. So I'm going to multiply each coefficient, which is 1 in this case, times my 2 subscripts. So I have a coefficient of 1 times a subscript of 2 for hydrogen, because the 2 is to the right of hydrogen. 2 times 1 is 2. Then I'm going to do the same thing with oxygen. 1 times 1 is 1. Then if I wanted to take it a step further, I could ask you, well, how many atoms of hydrogen do you have? You guys would simply answer, well, 2. But then if I asked you how many atoms of oxygen, you would say 1. Now if I took it a step further and I asked you how many total atoms do I have, that's simple. You want to add the 2 element total atoms together. So 2 plus 1 is 3 total atoms in this one formula. Now let's do another one. How about NaCl? Okay. What's the first thing I need to do? Let's box this bad boy in. Okay, that's the formula I'm working with. Then I want to list my elements. Remember, for every capital letter, that's a different element. So I'm going to count my capitals. I have 1, 2 capitals, which means I have 2 elements, just like on the periodic table. So, first one is capital N with a lowercase a. That lowercase a goes with its capital just to the left of it. Okay? Then I have capital C with a lowercase l. So I have 2 elements in this formula. Then, what do I need to do next? Let's check for a coefficient outside the formula box. I don't have one, so I know that I have 1 set of NaCl. Then I want to check for my subscripts. Now, this one's a little different than the previous one simply because it has some lowercase ones. But remember, if I wrote capital Na down here, then I know that my subscript will go after the little a. So I don't see a subscript here, so that's going to be 1. I don't see 1 after the lowercase l, so that's a 1. All I got to do is multiply. Coefficient times subscript. 1 times 1 is 1. Coefficient times subscript. 1 times 1 is 1. So how many atoms of Na do I have? I have 1. How many atoms of Cl do I have? I have 1. How many total atoms do I have? 1 plus 1 is 2. Boom. All right, let's take it a step further. Let's do a different one. How about CH3COOH? Okay, same thing. Don't change a single thing you did. Okay, first thing we need to do, let's box in this formula. Okay, then what do I want to do? I want to list my elements. Now, if you notice that you have elements that repeat, C and C, that does not mean you write it down twice. It only counts as one. Capital C only represents carbon. Capital H only represents hydrogen. Capital O only represents oxygen. Okay, so I have a C. That's the first one. That counts for both C's. Okay, then I have H, one, I have two of them. I only count it once. And then I have O, so that only counts as once. Now what's left to do? Okay, let's just count some atoms here. But I need to check for a couple things. Do I have a coefficient out here? No, but I have a formula. So that's one set of choo-choo, as I like to call it, but it's CH3COOH, and that's vinegar. You know, that stinky stuff. All right, then I want to check for a subscript next to each of my capital letters just to the right. This first carbon doesn't have one, so let's add one. Okay, hydrogen does have one, so we're good there. The next carbon doesn't have one. Let's add it. O1. Check for oxygen. First one doesn't have one. Then the second oxygen doesn't have one. And then my last hydrogen doesn't have one, so I'm going to add it. Okay, so now let's just count it. Remember, you're going to multiply each coefficient, or the outside coefficient, with each element. But this one's going to be a little different, so just make sure you follow me. Okay, so like I said, you're going to multiply the coefficient by each subscript. So let's take this first one. This coefficient of 1 times the subscript of 1. 1 times 1 is 1, okay? But remember, I have a second C, okay? So I'm going to come back to that one, okay? Then I'm going to multiply 1 times this 3, okay? 1 times 3 is 3. All right, now I'm going to the next letter. 1 times 1 again. Now this second one, the second one here, is going to be added to this one here, okay? 1 plus 1, because I did 1 times 1, that gives me a total of 2. Then I'm going to go to my next letter. 1 times 1 is 1. That's an O. Okay, I'm going to my second O, so I'm going to add that one to the previous one. 1 times 1 is 1. And that's my last O, so that's 2. And then I just do my H. 1 times 1 is 1. So I add that to the 3 that I had. And I end up with 4. Okay, so how many total atoms of carbon do I have? I have 2. I have 4 hydrogen. I have 2 oxygen. How many total atoms do I end up with? 2 plus 4. It's going to give me 6 plus 2 more, 8 total atoms. All right, and my last example, we're going to do 4MgSO4. Okay? Now, first thing I want to do, I want to box in the formula. You never box in the coefficient. Never, ever, ever. It always stays on the outside, so make sure you leave the big 4 here on the outside. Then what do I have you do? Let's list those elements. Capital Mg, capital S, and capital O. Okay? Then check for those subscripts. There's no subscript here. That's a 1. There's no 1 here. But I do have the 4. And then it's simple distributive multiplication. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 4 is Hope you didn't say 8. 16. So I have 4 atoms of magnesium, 4 of sulfur, 16 of oxygen. When I add all that together, hopefully I can do the math right in my head, I end up with 24 atoms. I hope this practice helped, and get ready to do whatever assignment is I have laid out for you.